Can you guys hear me?
All right, good evening, everybody. Today is Tuesday, October 15th, 2024. The time is now 6:01 p.m. I call this Boynton Beach City Commission meeting to order. Good evening and welcome to all of you in person and online. Before we begin, I want to remind everybody of our rules of civility and decorum. Speakers must first be addressed by the chair and not interrupt any other speaker. Public comments must be addressed to the board as a whole through the chair. Personal attacks, insults, disruptive behaviors are strictly prohibited. Should you violate these rules, a warning will be provided, but should they persist, you may be asked to leave these chambers. Let's proceed now to the roll call. Let me turn to the city clerk. If you could please begin, Maylee.
Mayor Penserga.
Here.
Vice Mayor Kelly.
Here.
Commissioner Cruz.
Here.
Commissioner Hay.
Here.
Commissioner Turkin.
I'm here online.
Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you so much. We're going to move on to invocation and pledge of allegiance. The invocation this evening will be led by Pastor Jeff Kelly of First Baptist Boynton, followed by the pledge of allegiance to the flag led by Vice Mayor Kelly. Let's all stand for the invocation and pledge of allegiance. Pastor.
Join me in prayer. Almighty God and Creator, we come to you today and we thank you for the many abundant blessings that you give to us. We thank you for this city, O God, and for this community that is represented here. And we thank you for the government that you've given us here to guide our city and our community. Father, scriptures teach that you have established civil authorities to promote peace and order and justice. And so we pray that today you would use this established council to do these things. We pray for our mayor and for the various levels of city officials, and in particular for this assembled council. We ask that you would give them favor. We ask that you would give wisdom to govern, that you would give a sense of the welfare and the true needs of the community, a heart for justice and rightness. We pray that you would give them the ability to work well and in harmony with one another, and that you would give favor on their lives as they serve in these capacities. Father, we pray that the agenda that is before us this evening would be used to benefit those who live and work around this city of Boynton Beach, which we call home. We thank you for your kindness to us, and we pray these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, Pastor Kelly from First Baptist Boynton. We're now going to move on to agenda approval, additions, deletions, corrections to the agenda. Let me begin to my right, and then we'll go around the dais, beginning with Commissioner Cruz.
I have no amendments, Mayor.
All right, thank you. Vice Mayor Kelly?
No, Mayor, I do not. Thank you.
And thank you. Commissioner Hay, then we'll go to Commissioner Turkin, who's online.
No, I do not have any.
All right, thank you. And Commissioner Turkin?
No, Mayor.
All right, thank you. With that, may I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion from Vice Mayor and a second from Commissioner Hay. All those in favor of approving the agenda as presented, say aye. Aye. Anyone oppose? Motion passes unanimously and the agenda is adopted. We're now going to turn to informational items by members of the City Commission. Commissioner Hay, you had requested to go last, so we'll begin again on my right with Commissioner Cruz, and we'll go around the dais.
I received multiple emails. I have to go back to the item. Item 10B. I've received emails from multiple companies with regard to that item. That's all. No further disclosures.
All right, thank you. Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. I have also received emails, but I've also spoken with representatives from Viera and representatives from Red Speed on 10B. And that's all I have for my disclosures. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I'll reserve my disclosures when we get to that item. Let's go to Commissioner Turkin online.
Yeah, just those disclosures for 10 Bravo, 10B.
All right.
I spoke to Neil Schiller from Red Speed and then Joseph Salzberg, I believe, with Vera, and received emails um, from representatives of Red Speed as well.
All right, thank you. Now we're going to turn to Commissioner Hay for informational items.
And I too receive emails from the company that was just mentioned. I come to this point that I need to say a few words. By the way, I was very happy to attend the First Friday activities along with Angela Cruz, who gave out many Hispanic Achievement Awards, and it was a great celebration on last week. So thank you for that. First of all, I'd like to apologize to the public and to the staff for my actions at the last commission meeting. It was not very becoming of who I am. For those of you who may not know, I got a little heated at our last commission meeting when I brought up the idea of a discussion about strong majority vote versus a simple majority vote. You would think that I had started World War III. Some would say I was trying to make Boynton Beach a sanctuary city. I don't know where in the world that came from. And many of you thought I was going after Dan Duggar and Shauna Lamb, the city attorney, and the city manager, Dan. But I was not, and I am not. I'm not going after Dan and Shauna. If I wanted to do that, I certainly would not have waited 2 years to get started. My position has been and always have been for years and years that there's no position in the city that should require a strong majority vote. We vote on millions of dollars, multi-million-dollar contract, and I think those are very important. And so I just don't think that a position is as important as that. So I just wanted to have an open discussion, which I stated several times, about the pros and cons of the two structures of government. I wanted to get ourselves educated about this subject. And once we got educated about the subject, to let the public decide which form of government they wanted through voting on a referendum, if it got to that. There are 39 municipalities here in Palm Beach County. There must be a reason why about 34 out of that 39 have a simple majority. We here in Boynton Beach are an autonomous body, which means we make the rules and we obey the rules. I just wanted to make sure we have the best structure that fits Boynton Beach. We on this commission are forever looking at what other cities are doing on a specific issue. What's wrong with being educated on what other cities are doing on this particular item, and to ask why do they have that structure of government? That's where I want it to go. Boynton Beach has not always had a form of government that we have now. There was a time that we had a simple majority vote, and I won't go into the details of that. But just know that what I'm looking for is not to bring in personalities. Let's take names out of this. I mean it in a nice way, but just forget about Dan, forget about Shauna. Looking in the future of what would be good for this city. Because they're not always going to be sitting in those seats, nor any of the commissioners up here. But at the end of the day, what works for one city may not work for another. But it is worth our while to take a look at why the majority of cities out of the 39, 34 of them has a simple majority. And so I just say to myself, as I've been saying all along, why is that? Let's just study it, get educated, get informed. We may do nothing with it, or we may put it on the referendum, let you decide. This commission would not make that decision because it's too important. So, you, the public, can help to stabilize this oscillation based on who's in office. But the timing of this whole scenario on my part was not a good one. I'm not sure there is a good timing to discuss such a heated topic, because it seemed like everybody ran off in all directions. And it was not my intent at all to cause confusion or disruption within the city of Boynton. I wanted to look at this long term based on past. So, however, you know, my old folks, I guess I'm old now too, but the old folks had a saying that a hit dog will holler. I didn't, as a child, I didn't know what that meant, but now I do understand it a little bit better. So I want to thank you for listening to my comments. I pray that you will receive them in the manner that I hope to have delivered them. I'm sorry that this commission chose not to discuss this any further, but we will move on from here. And just be assured that whenever I say anything and speak, and I told you all the same thing over and over again, I have the best interests of Boynton Beach in mind. And if it came down to choosing between you and Boynton Beach, I think you would answer that question. It would be Boynton Beach. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. On that note, I will add that misinformation is incredibly insidious, and I have heard similar rumors, and I just want to clear for the record that state law prevents any city from becoming a sanctuary city. That's not even possible. All right, let's move on to the next portion of the agenda, announcements, community and special events and presentations. There's 2 announcements under this section. The city's annual Fall Festival on Saturday, October 19th from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. is at the Centennial Park located at 120 East Ocean Avenue in downtown Boynton Beach. This year's event includes A kids zone, pumpkin giveaways, food trucks, music, petting zoo, and more. Community Greening will be on site hosting a free tree giveaway for attendees while supplies last. Plus, enjoy the Hispanic Heritage Art Exhibition and free dance classes, including samba, at the Arts and Cultural Center. For more information, log on to the Recreation and Parks Department's website at WeMakeLifeFun.com. That's WeMakeLifeFun.com. Whoever chose that, thank you so much. That was a really good idea. The next announcement is about our Pirate Fest. Bigger than ever, this free family-friendly event will feature multiple entertainment stages, live cannon performances, a mermaid grotto, an enhanced market, treasure hunts, a wide array of food, and more. This event will kick off with a cannon firing promptly at 12 p.m. on Saturday, that's 10/26, and Sunday. Attendees will enjoy nonstop entertainment on 5 stages. The famous Mermaid Jules and her friends will provide makeovers at the Mermaid Grotto. Tiny pirates can dig for treasures in the little scallywag zone. And did I just say that? I just did. It's a little scallywag zone. And enjoy bounce houses, face painting, and more. The Field of Danger will feature jaw-dropping stunts and death-defying feats. Immerse yourself in an adventure at the Pirate Encampment, which will include axe throwing, sword fighting, and a haunted trail after dark on Saturday night. The Enchanted Market will showcase treasures from local vendors, and you can feast like a pirate with various foods and beverage vendors. View the full event schedule, shuttle locations, details, and updates at bbpiratefest.com. Again, that's bbpiratefest.com. So that concludes the 2 announcements and that portion of the agenda. We're going to turn now to public audience. As always, each person has 3 minutes. So let's begin. All right, so let me switch the timer. Same rules as always. Give me one moment to get this going. We've got 2 podiums, and after we've concluded with those in the chambers, we'll go to those online. State your name for the record, sir, and you may begin whenever you're ready.
Thank you. I'm David Merker, former city commissioner. Commissioner Hay, shame on you.
Sir, address me. Sir, address me. You will not attack any member of this board.
I am not attacking if you
All right,
let me
so-
finish.
Yes, just address me,
It's
sir.
an opening statement.
All right, address
It's
me.
not negative,
All right, address me, sir.
okay? I said shame on you because I respect tremendously Commissioner Hay. I had the privilege of serving with him, listening to him, and learning from him. Commissioner Hay has an open mind. And the idea that he said, I believe you said 34 or other cities have a different vote count on issues is curiosity. It's something that we, the city of Boynton Beach, should consider. It's not a closed door. When a government becomes closed door and the minds close, we're in trouble. So I want to recommend and thank you for your open mind and bringing forth the idea. And the rest of the commission should think twice too and understand why other cities have this vote count that we don't have.
All right, thank you. Next speaker, state your name for the record and begin whenever you're ready.
Susan Oyer, Boynton Beach. I want to say thank you to Patrick Hart and Nicole, I don't know her last name, who were both very helpful to me when I was in City Hall last week. So I've got to say, this is 2 times in a row I've been up here saying nice things about your staff, Dan. So, I love Patrick. He's my favorite person. So, oh, no, I'm wrong. He's number 3, because we've got Info the Fish. We've got Jay, who moved up a half a step, so he's now a half step below the fish, and then we'll put Patrick right in after him. So there you go. I wanted to comment and remind everyone that the Seacrest Estates neighborhood is having their annual Halloween decorating contest that I organize and sponsor. This is the 12th year. I'm looking for a judge. If any of you on the dais are bored the weekend before Halloween and you want to come do some judging, I'm guessing this year because of the hurricanes, we're not having a ton of houses to choose from, so it would be a quick adventure. If you're interested, please, reach out to me because I could use a judge. Dan was nice enough to do it last year, and I know Commissioner Turkin's done it a couple times now, but I'm looking to shake it up and do somebody new. And I want to just kind of throw this out because I think this is coming up later, but I'm not 100% sure because I actually don't spend my time looking at these agendas ahead of time. I'm the one who looks at them when I walk in here, unless somebody's calling me to tell me something crazy is going to happen, and then we all know about it. But the tree pruning issue. Once again, during this hurricane, the power went out on my block because I have one neighbor at 149 Southeast 28th Court who chooses not to prune their trees. And once again, we were without power, and thank you, FP&L. They got it on 2 hours ahead of their projected schedule time. But that house chooses to never prune their trees, and every time we have any kind of storm, the power goes out because of that one house. So I am hoping that you guys do something about this tree pruning and put some teeth in it so that this house will stop the nonsense. Because in my case, and I did call them out on Facebook, is I have a sick pet who takes very expensive meds, and they have to be refrigerated. And if something happens and I have no power and those meds go bad, I can't just go buy more meds. These meds take 3 to 4 weeks to come in from an out-of-state distributor, and plus they're really crazy expensive. And I don't like that I have to worry about this because this idiot won't climb up the ladder and trim their tree or hire someone. If I can climb up the tree and trim my trees, then they can too, or they can hire someone. So please put some teeth in that tree ordinance. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next person.
Cindy Falco Di Corrado. I'm glad that you all came to the conclusion on Thursday night that you weren't going to vote on having a simple majority vote. I find it very, I know that you hid behind that because what happens is this has already been a set precedence from the beginning of since you were on commissioners. If you want to think about something, do this before we go midterm and your terms are up before you decide to do a simple majority vote. So I know that you said that you're sorry for that, but it was put on the table. There was a big argument on Thursday night at one of the meetings, and it was really sad to see, only because you wanted to do something behind the back of the people when you originally stated you were going to do it tonight. So that brings me to my point that I am not in favor of changing the voting from a supermajority vote to a simple majority vote, as this has been on the agenda, then off the agenda, then on the agenda, then off the agenda, then on the agenda, then off the agenda. I wanted to make it known, just like the incident report that was written up on March 6th, that was a falsified report in regards to my case when I was abused right here in this City Hall meeting here. It was said it was corrected, and I still have yet to receive it. It's still in the process, so I don't have the corrected copy of the report, and I would appreciate it if you don't P. Diddy our city. As all of you know, on the dais up there, each and every one of you are witnesses to the abuse that took place by Sergeant Jean. 2 officers falsified the incident report. Now, these are supposed to be police officers who swore an oath to be honest. This is under penalty of perjury that Officer Capini and Estevez signed their name to a docket that was a lie. And I'm going to read what was said because you were sitting here that night so that you can see that I am not telling lies. I'm speaking the truth. So Sergeant Jean advised that while Falco Di Corrado was speaking during her allotted 3 minutes interval, she became irate and went over her allotted time. Sergeant Jean advised Falco Di Corrado that she needed to relinquish the microphone to allow others to have their time. Falco Di Corrado then became even more irate and belligerent, causing the mayor to have to stop the commission meeting to address the issue, at which time Sergeant Jean advised Falco Di Corrado that she was no longer welcome at the commission meetings. As you all well know, I was sitting right over there. I wasn't at the mic. I had finished even earlier than my allotted time. I was attacked 3 times by Officer Jean. And as you know, we have video and proof of that. So as I said, I was in my seat. I am a very concerned woman who wants justice, because if that happened to me in a county commission meeting where there are cameras everywhere, what is going on the streets? How many lies and deceit are being done on the rest of the American people? I remind you, don't P. Diddy my city. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next speaker, begin when you're ready, sir.
David Cass, Boynton Beach. The 4-1 supermajority was put in place 29 years ago, 1995. None of you up there except for Commissioner Hay were around, but he was not involved then. None of you. You need to know why it happened. I'm not here to say good or bad, why it happened. I served on the commission with 2 city managers. First, J. Scott Miller, who relocated to College Park, Georgia, and then Carrie Parker. You may know who she is. She did serve on the school board. Carrie Parker put forth during her budget process a reorganization of the city back then. And the mayor at the time, Ed Harmoning, was very upset about it, downright ticked off, I would say, because one of the people who's being reorganized that was a fellow named Bill Sullivan, who was the HR manager. Very, very good friends with Ed Harmoning. And at that meeting, Ed Harmoning said, if I knew I had 3 votes, I'd fire you tonight, talking about Carrie Parker. I wasn't happy with the reorganization myself, but I was not prepared to vote to fire the city manager over that. And so subsequently to that, the next commission decided to institute the 4-1 supermajority. And that's why it's in place. That's why we had Kurt Bresner for many years. That's why we had Lori Laviere for many years. And that's why we haven't had large turnover of city managers since we've been here. Because you need to take the bloody politics out of the process of hiring and firing the city manager. I cannot, please. I understand that at any one time, having served on the commission, the city manager can tick off three commissioners for whatever reason, but you can't let that come into your brains and think about wanting to fire the city manager no matter who they are. Again, you need to know the history of why it came about and why it's been successful. That's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker on the other podium, come on up, state your name for the record and begin when you're ready.
Melissa Hagens. In 2001, I asked to see could I get some proper drainage where I live at, and they said they was not going to put any drainage. They would dig swells. We need the swells redug. I guess I have to come up here and tell someone. I don't know the little man in the car that rides around. I don't know if he reports back. I know he sticker people cars if they don't have the right tag, but they don't get back and say, well, hey, this lady over here, we need swells dug out because she's going to have a flooding issue. September the 11th, I think y'all had a meeting. It rained for 1 hour. I couldn't get out of my house. The water was all the way up past my tree. So they're going to widen Gateway Bridge. Is that going to bring more debris and make me more of have a flooding issue in my area? I mean, 2001, I asked for some drainage. And on Gateway Bridge, I noticed the drainage, it looked like flower pots. There's trees growing out of those things. So they don't get the proper, I guess, drainage there. So I'm hoping that somebody can help me on my end because coming up here, I don't feel like it's my job to keep coming up here stating problems when I assume y'all have people going around looking at, seeing what we need done in our neighborhoods. Another thing is, I listened to a comment one of the citizens made before, and it's about, I noticed they came up here about the school kids, changing the hours. Now, these are elementary kids. Tell me why do they have to walk to school within 2 miles, but a city worker can live a half a block down the road and have city trucks parked in their yards? It doesn't make sense. These little kids have to walk as long as it's less than 2 miles cross Seacrest, which is 95, cross that dangerous highway. I see little kids all the time, and I'm afraid for them. They don't have an adult with them, and they're walking along this street. I mean, they can't get transportation. Why aren't they bused? I mean, less than 2 miles? What kid want to walk to school almost 2 miles and then, get there and actually have some, not tired, but you have city workers with cars less than a block or 2 blocks. I've seen it. And I'm like, why do they have those cars parked in there like they their own personal car? I don't mean to knock their, I don't know, is it, look, accessories, but it doesn't make sense. Make things make sense. These kids, if they have to walk, well, the city work, I don't know if these like for emergency purposes or what. I'm like, I don't know what kind of emergency they have to go. I know the police maybe or the fire people or whatever, but city workers, I really don't know. I don't want to knock because what I don't know about, but they really need to look into these kids.
All right, thank you. And before you leave, I just want to encourage you, maybe perhaps Kevin, would you mind just reaching out and getting her contact information so we can follow up on the flooding? Thank you so much. Next speaker, begin when you're ready.
Karen Reinhardt. I am here to talk again.
Could you move closer to the mic, please?
I am calling to speak about, I was told also that you guys were going to change this to a sanctuary city, and I was very concerned about it, and listen to what I have to say. You guys came out and put all these poles in our neighborhood. Not one of you's knocked on anybody's door in our neighborhood and asked us about these poles. I came up here and I talked about these so-called free internet poles. That's not what they are. Nobody was ever told about it. You guys just did it. So that's what I even walked my neighborhood today and begged people to come to this meeting because I was here when this was a sanctuary city and it was no good. And I want to say another thing. This is for everybody that lives in Boynton, that owns a home. When there is a hurricane coming, do not cut your trees and put them out on the street. This happens every hurricane, and it's not fair to the people that live there and for the city workers, because I begged and I spoke to Thomas Turkin, this past hurricane, because someone cut a whole mango tree down the street and he had the people come. Why can't people understand that it's your home, it's your property? It's the same thing of cutting your trees. Cut your trees, yeah, but don't do it when a hurricane is coming. And I live down by the 95 wall. It is disgusting back there. There's garbage all the time. There's graffiti. Like, why doesn't the city do something about that? You know, I've lived here for many years, and it's been the same way year after year. And, you know, this thing about these poles, somebody better, you know, come clean and tell us as, you know, homeowners what they're doing in our properties, on our properties, in our neighborhood. I think we have a right to know. I watched them poles during this past storm. That wasn't even a bad storm. And I've watched them go like this. They're not safe. And you guys just stuck them in there. You guys made the permits to have them put them all in our neighborhood. Now you guys know, let us know. Why hide it from us? It's not fair to us as the people. We live here. We have to deal with these poles, whatever they are, causing cancer, whatever they do. But we should have an explanation to what they are. And I've asked about this in another meeting, and nobody says anything. It's never in the agenda or anything. It's about time you answer some questions.
All right, thank you. Next speaker, state your name for the record. Begin when you're ready.
Yeah, good evening, Steve Muckerman. Just a couple comments and suggestions, if I may. So I think it's real important that everyone here is well informed about what goes on, who votes for what and why. And I think it'd be a good thing if we can kind of be transparent about that. And one thing I'd suggest is we get the water bills every month, and you guys put good flyers in about Christmas parades and Halloween party and whatnot. I think it'd be good if maybe every quarter in that flyer put in there who voted for what, like on some key issues. Like a few months ago, the big 7-story apartment complex was voted on. One commissioner voted against it, others all voted for it. So it would be good to know when people vote that they know how well they're being represented. So I think it'd be a very good thing. I know you guys had this out on TV Land, but I've never heard a question asked from TV Land, so I don't know how many people actually watch that. But again, I think it's good to be transparent, and I think it would be very helpful if you could, maybe in a quarterly water bill, say, here's our commissioners, here's like 5 big issues that came up, and here's who voted for it, and here's who voted against it. And I think that'd be a good way to be very transparent. So thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, anyone else in the chambers before we go to those online? All right, seeing no one else in the room, let's go check online, and I see no one online. With that, public audience is now closed. We're going to move on to the next portion of the agenda, which is the administrative portion. Administrative 5A, Advisory Board Appointments. Let me pull up the list. So looking at the list, we have several openings in many advisory boards. Let's just go down to the ones where we do have applicants. The first one here is the Library Board. There are several applicants for the Library Board. Commissioner Turkin, this nomination goes to you. There is a regular member seat. Let's begin with you, Commissioner Turkin, if you would like to make a nomination.
Mayor, do you mind reading the applicant for me? I don't want to open
Yes.
up, back up.
So the names are, for the Library Board, are Beverly Kokoli, and I apologize in advance if I'm saying your names wrong. That's Beverly Kokoli, Aaron Davis, Jane McGill, Lorraine Farmer, and Harish Madhav. And Joanne Hamper, Bill Lee, Melissa Owen, and Elizabeth Watts. Would you like me to run through the names again, Commissioner?
Nope, that's okay. We'll go with Beverly.
With Beverly.
Oh, that's good.
All right.
Thank you.
Yes. Is there a second to that nomination? Second. We have a second from Commissioner Hay. All those in favor of appointing Beverly Kokoli to the Library Board for the regular seat, say aye.
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 Aye. Anyone oppose? Motion passes unanimously. Congratulations, Ms. Beverly. The next item here is for the Municipal Firefighters Pension Trust Fund Board. We have one applicant, Desiree Patterson. Commissioner Cruz, this nomination goes to you. It's for the regular seat for a 4-year term. Would you like to make a nomination?
Yes, Mayor, I'll go ahead and nominate Desiree Patterson.
All right, and is there a second?
Second.
Second, I don't know who was first, Commissioner Hay perhaps was the second. All those in favor of appointing Desiree Patterson to the Municipal Firefighters Pension Trust Fund Board, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone oppose? Motion passes unanimously. All right, moving on, and I believe, let me just double check. I think that might just be it. And it is. All right, that concludes 5A. We're now going to move on to 5B, Community Support Funds. Today we have a request from Commissioner Turkin. Let me open that up. All right, so this is for Growing Strong Ministries. Commissioner Turkin, this was your request. Is there a second to his request?
Second.
Vice Mayor was the second. All those in favor of approving this item say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All right. We're now going to move on to consent agenda. Let me take a moment. Let me ask my colleagues, is there anything under consent that you would like me to, that you would like to pull? Under consent? Nope.
No.
If there's nothing, we have a motion to approve the entirety of consent.
Second.
We had a motion from Commissioner Hay, a second from Vice Mayor Kelly to approve the entirety of consent agenda. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone oppose? Motion passes unanimously. So now we're going to move on to Section 7, which is consent bids and purchases over $100,000. Are there any requests from my colleagues? Anyone wish to pull an item? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve from Commissioner Hay. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Vice Mayor Kelly. All those in favor of approving consent bids and purchases over $100K, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any objections? Motion passes unanimously. We're now going to turn to the public hearing portion of this evening. We have several ordinances. I'm going to turn to our city clerk to initiate the process.
Proposed ordinance number 24-017, second reading, an ordinance of the City of Commission of the City of Boynton Beach, Florida, amending the City of Boynton Beach's Code of Ordinances, Chapter 15, Offenses, Miscellaneous, Article 9, Community Appearance and Maintenance, Section 15-120, Minimum Standards for Appearance and Maintenance of Public Property and Private Property, providing for conflicts, severability codification, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you so much, City Clerk. Let me turn now to Ms. Stone. If you could give us a brief overview of the item.
Good evening, Commission, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners, audience. I have here the second reading, so the changes that were made were concerning the tree trimming. Let me just get my part. So we changed the verbiage to say, newly planted trees shall be maintained so that the mature canopy is a minimum of 10 feet away from the overhead utility lines. So this is just a guideline and a standard set for residents to know where they should really plant the tree and to keep that, awareness when they plant it. Not that we're gonna go out there and look at every tree and say that one is new, this one's not new. It's just a standard to go by for the residents to go by when planting. And then we added that trees directly under and growing into the facility or utility space shall be removed or pruned using directional pruning methods when possible. So there is, FP&L will come out if you put a request in, the residents puts a request in. FP&L will come out and they'll assess the tree and they'll let you know whether it will need to be removed, and sometimes they'll remove it, and sometimes they'll do directional pruning where they won't have to remove the tree. And there's also licensed landscapers who will do the same if the residents hire them. That way, it's not necessarily if the tree is growing into a thing, they will have to remove it. It could be directionally pruned, and you see that a lot around the streets. Good examples around the streets where you can see the directional pruning, which can be done in the backyards as well. And then the trees shall be pruned in accordance with the standards set forth in the American National Standards Initiative, which is standards set by a company, and most cities, a lot of cities will use those standards, and the residents can use that as a guideline on how to prune the trees. And then as Vice Mayor Kelly requested, I did draft a plan of action, which includes getting the information out there, and include objective, timeline, communication, working with FP&L as well. Like I said, they will come out if you put a request in. How long it takes, I won't know. Along with a draft of where's that? A letter to the residents that state what the new ordinance is and gives them options, what they can do, where they can give some resources. I haven't been able to secure any funding. I am searching through different departments, and I have some more research to do for funding to see if that is a possibility. I'm meeting with Alana next week to see, or at the end of this week, to see if maybe through one of her fundings that's going to be proposed next year, we can include that. But for now, I haven't really secured a funding, but we'll again work with the residents on compliance dates. As long as it's not sparking or health and safety in that manner, then, we can obviously give time for them to comply and, cure the pruning.
All right, thank you, Candace. Let's go to Vice Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you, Candace. What, those drafts that you have, can you, I was really hoping before second reading that we would have an opportunity to look at them because, as my concern was at the meeting, was without knowing how this was going to roll out and how that was going to affect the residents, it's really hard for me to put an ordinance in place that's going to require strict compliance when the way that we're going to roll that out is not clear, not only to us, but also to the residents. So I'm glad that we have a draft plan in place, but I'm hesitant to change this without really vetting how this is going to roll out. So I don't know if, so that's my concern, and that was my concern at the last meeting as well, and I don't know if staff has a solution to that because we don't really know exactly how that's going to roll out with conversations with FP&L or with staff. And, the financial burden, the potential financial burden to the residents is a concern. So I'm glad that we have a draft, but I am concerned without having that kind of finalized and vetted and agreed to, that we're putting this ordinance in place.
Well, I call it draft. I mean, I can read it, or if you want, yes, table it, and I can send it. We can send it to have you guys review.
Excuse me, I did want to mention, this was tabled from last meeting.
Right.
So if we're going to consider it now, we should move to untable the item. If not, we.
It doesn't show that it was tabled. I
Oh,
thought we just
it-
had made changes.
No, it does here. Yeah, it does here
8A?
in the minutes from the last meeting that
see.
it was
oh.
tabled. So,
So let's
Yeah.
entertain a motion to remove from the table first, since we are discussing it already.
Motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second to remove this item from the table so we can discuss it. All those in favor of the motion to remove from the table, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, and when opposed, motion passes unanimously. Thank you so much for that. It was not written on the agenda, or at least not in my copy, so thank you for that. Thank you for letting us know. Candace, keep going. What were you saying? You were,
I was just saying, if you guys wanted to, either I can send it, the draft I have, or I can read it, what I have here, and if you guys are okay with that, then it could be a final draft. I mean, it could be a final, implementation.
So what, I guess, what changes to the ordinance are directly related or are affected, would directly affect the residents as far as this tree trimming issue?
It would just, if there's a tree that's already, that is grown into the power lines, then residents are going, obviously, they're going to be in violation right away. That's with any ordinance or new ordinance you put in, they're going to have people in violation. That's why we're going to, give that grace period and put the communication out there to allow them to trim it on their own and hire someone if they need, or put the ticket into FP&L and have them come out and do it, give it time. And even if, let's say they do get cited because we're out there and we're doing, we look at everything as a whole, and that's one of the items that we see, that the trees are in the power lines, then as long as it's not sparking or causing a health and safety issue, then that we can give them, a verbal warning, give them courtesy notice, and give them that time to comply. If they put in a ticket with FPL, they'll get that number back, a reference number they can give us, and we can give them more time to see when FPL is going to go out there and, address it if they're going to.
Thank you. Shauna, is there, I know it's not customary on an ordinance, but in this situation where it directly affects residents, what does legal recommend as far as, do we do some sort of a rollout date, or do we pass it with the disclaimer and the knowledge that there is this waiting period? Because what I don't want to happen is that this passes and then all of these drafts that we're proposing and how we're going to handle this don't ever get finalized, or they don't get rolled out properly, and then here we are out code violating residents. And I foresee that being a giant disaster. And so I want to make sure that it's very clear that that's not what's going to happen.
sure, what we can do, we can certainly, I would recommend tabling it one more week. We can work it into the ordinance, either that specific provision will have a specific effective date, or Candace and I can work with perhaps the entire ordinance. Normally, it's effective immediately upon passage, but we could certainly change that, or we could do a motion to change that now, and then I just have to rewrite the ordinance to reflect whatever the board wants now. So we can do it one of two ways. You can tell me what you want it to be, and then I can implement those changes. You could pass it tonight, subject to those changes, or we can table it again. We can see the changes, how it's written, and then vote on it, whatever the commission deems best.
Yeah, I mean, so then my second concern, which I'm fine with that, if that's the consensus of the board, but then I also don't want to lose forward motion either on this. So I also then don't want, because the effective date, if we decided to push the effective date off, then nothing would happen on the ordinance until it was effective, and then we're then going out and coding, and we're running into the same issue, where we're backlogging residents with code violations on a tree issue. So I just want to make sure that it's clear that we have to be proactive on this, and that whether or not this is effective upon voting on it tonight, or whether it's effective in 6 months, we can't wait until 6 months to then start the process of how we're going to notify residents. If we know that there's issues now, we should be, being proactive about
and
that
that's
in whatever
part
way
of
we
the
can.
Plan of action.
You could also potentially write into it that for this particular code violation, that upon the third notice of violation, that's when the fines will begin to accrue. So
So I already have that in this draft. I already have, like I said, if you want, I can read through it so that way you know what the idea
Kind of
so
a site
far.
person, so, yeah.
I can give it to you to read if that's what you want.
I'm
I mean,
gonna
like I
hold up the
said.
whole meeting on this one little thing, so.
Yeah.
But that's fine. I mean, those are my concerns. I'm glad to see, like I said, I hadn't seen the draft, so I'm glad to see that we're considering those things. So I guess I'll just hear what the rest of my colleagues think, but it's tough for me to put something into law that's directly gonna affect the residents without exactly knowing how we're gonna roll it out and how we're gonna be proactive for the residents, so.
Thank you, Vice Mayor, and I support your sentiments. I think if we wait one more meeting, it's not the end of the world, but we want to get this right because we don't want to adversely affect residents without a complete plan in place. So I'm right there with you. Was that your leaning as well, to maybe wait till the next meeting? Okay, let's hear from our colleagues as well. Commissioner Cruz and Commissioner Hay.
I'll support Vice Mayor as well. I think that's a great point.
Okay, Commissioner Hay.
I do agree with Vice Mayor.
All right. Any thoughts, Commissioner Turkin?
Good to go. I agree.
All right.
Motion to retable item
Second.
8A.
All
Can I
right.
ask one question?
Yes.
What time frame do you believe we should give after the effective date? Or at the effective date? Because right now I have in here 90 days, but I just want to get an idea so I can maybe rewrite that portion.
Well, let's see what you have. I mean, in my opinion is, let's see what you have started and see what you are
One second,
proposing.
Vice Mayor. Commissioner Turkin, if you could please mute yourself. We're hearing a lot of background noises. Thank you so much. Go ahead, Vice Mayor.
Based on your knowledge and based on code and how you handle code, let's see what you propose and what legal says, and then go from there. That's my position on that.
All right, thank you. We have a motion to table. We have a second. All those in favor of tabling item 8A to the next meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone oppose? Motion passes unanimously. This item is now tabled. Let's proceed to item 8B.
Candace.
Thank you. Item 8B, City Clerk.
Proposed ordinance number 24-020, second reading, and ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Boynton Beach, Florida, amending Article 2 of Chapter 18 of the Boynton Beach Code of Ordinances entitled Employees Pension Plan, amending Section 18-145, City of Boynton Beach Investment Policy for General Employees Pension Fund, providing for codification, providing for severability of provisions, repealing of all ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you so much, City Clerk. Let me turn to council. Our council here has informed me of a recent update. Go ahead.
Yes, I had a telephone conversation with Bonnie Jensen, who is the attorney for the general employees pension, all of our pension plans. Actually, she's kind of the guru. She made some additional recommendations to this, and I don't want you guys to take my word for it, but unfortunately, because she had another commitment today, she was unable to email the board with regard to some language changes between first and second reading. So I believe it's something the board probably should consider with regard to her recommendations. So, so that we get this right and not have to do it again. If the board agrees, I'd like to go ahead and suggest we table it until we get those recommendations from your counsel who is on the pension board.
Thank you, Council. I have not had an opportunity. I'm just hearing this. I just heard about it a few minutes ago, so I've not had an opportunity to speak with Ms. Jensen. So I do agree with your recommendation to table this item for those reasons.
Motion
Motion to table. Second.
All right, we have a motion from Commissioner Hayes, second from Commissioner Cruz to table this item to next meeting. Council, I believe that's sufficient. Next meeting, we'll
Yes,
have clarity by
November
then.
4th.
All right, thank you so much. All those in favor of the motion to table item 8B, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone oppose? Motion passes unanimously to the next meeting, We're moving on to item 8C, City Clerk.
Proposed ordinance number 24-021, second reading, an ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Boynton Beach, Florida, amending Part 3, Chapter 4, Site Development Standards, Article 10, Flood Prevention Requirements, Section 1-1.c, Administration, Section 1.d, Applicability, and Section 5.e, Building and Structures, providing for codification, severability, conflicts, and providing for an effective date.
All right, thank you. John, you're going to give us a brief overview?
Good evening, Mayor.
Good evening.
Vice Mayor, Commission, and City Manager. The state contacted us a couple of weeks ago about further corrections that need to be done. When we were audited in 2017, the state reviewed our flood ordinance for compliance. And we were contacted a couple of weeks ago that they had made some oversights in reviewing our flood ordinance. And they asked on the second reading that we make a couple of changes to reference an item, actually 3 items. And the other corrections need to be done at a later date. They are affecting different chapters and definitions. So I am presently working on going by the recommendations again from the correction of 2017, and we will be seeing each other again probably November, December to complete the floodplain ordinance for the state of Florida.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Kunzman? Vice Mayor?
John, so the changes that we discussed at the last meeting and that are in this are correct, and these are changes that need to be made
Yes.
now to comply with
Yes,
the FEMA changes as of,
yes, this chapter would be.
Perfect.
Would be fully corrected.
Okay.
It's different chapters that affect the floodway, which we don't have, and that affects the definitions and some other areas in different chapters.
okay,
There's
perfect.
no changes from the first reading.
Negative.
No, I'm sorry. There was a
Actually,
change.
there is.
Yeah,
Yes.
Section 4 of the ordinance, and I have that up, I don't know if you do, but the state noticed that there were 2 incorrect references. We had a reference to a Section 2C and a Section 2B, and those sections actually changed to 4B2 and 4B3, and then lower down 4B1. So we just had to update those section changes, that was it. That's the only change from first to second.
Perfect.
Motion to approve.
Not quite just yet.
Oh, you got audio?
Yeah, we got to do public comments, all right? This is
Public
second
audience.
reading. So again, this is agenda item 8C. If you would like to speak specifically on this item, now is the time to approach the podium, again, specifically on item 8C. After those in persons have spoken, we'll go to those online. Same rules as before.
Hi, Susan Oyer, Boynton Beach. Not having read through all this, please enlighten me. Are we looking to do something positive, like having more gravel and more grid and gravel systems and more permeable pavement? Is that included in this or not?
No.
Okay, so what kind of stuff is included in this for the
John,
person in the room?
I would ask
Sorry.
I would ask you to refrain, and just maybe you can respond after everyone's spoken.
Yeah.
Just as a matter of practice. All right.
Thank
Keep
you,
going.
sorry about that. No, I think just for everyone in the room, it'd be nice if we have like a couple little details. And I'm going to throw out once again that I think we always need to be encouraging permeable pavement. which helps solve our problem, and grid and gravel systems, and having more gravel as an option in people's yards, because my yard stopped flooding the minute I switched over to grid and gravel. My neighbors' yards all still flood because grass retains, gravel does not. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next person. Again, we are on 8C on the agenda. All right, begin when you're ready.
I guess this about still the flooding, so I'm assuming.
State your name for the record, ma'am, and then I'll begin the time.
Melissa Hagens. My area, it floods at my house also. They dug swales some years ago. I asked them why didn't they put in a appropriate drainage system. Now, with this hurricane that just left, I literally, because my neighbors didn't cut their swales, and they was like knee high, I mowed from my last neighbor to like the last house on the opposite side to maybe 2 houses down, just so the water would run off in there, because it have built back up. So I would like to know, what do they plan on doing in my area, because they are widening Gateway Bridge, and is that going to bring more water into my house? Because literally I had to put towels one year, trying to keep the water from coming in. So hopefully they really look at the areas that's under Gateway Bridge, because that's where they're doing the work at. So I'm hoping that you look at Gateway Bridge, where they're planning to expand, or what are they planning on to do about the drainage in that area. So the house, so it won't, so you won't flood in that area.
All right, thank you. Anyone else in the room? Seeing no one else, and I see no one online, public comments on this item is now closed. Are there any follow-up questions or comments from my colleagues for Mr. Kunzman while he's here? John, did you have anything on your end as well?
Unfortunately, our flood ordinance does not address non-special flood hazard areas. Our flood ordinance is for our CRS rating. We are a 5, we're looking to be a 4, and our flood ordinance, like I said, is for special flood hazard areas, not non-special flood hazard areas. Although with our high scores in the CRS, it also gives discounts for flood insurance in non-special flood hazard areas of 10%.
All right, thank you so much. If there's nothing else from my colleagues, Commissioner Hay, did you want to make that motion again? Oh, did you?
Sorry,
have one?
just one.
Go ahead, no.
John, so this ordinance, though, strictly is to update an ordinance that has already been in place, and this strictly is regarding FEMA corrections that they're making to our ordinance because it is outdated.
The state is providing us information to correct our flood ordinance, so it's in compliance with the state of Florida. And in compliance with the state of Florida, it's compliance with FEMA, and that gives us the ability to stay in the CRS program.
Right, but what we're doing right now is we're just making minor changes so that it reflects
Yes, ma'am.
correctly state law and the FEMA flood provisions, correct? Okay, thank you.
Last call, anything else? All right, we have a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, we have a motion from Commissioner Hayes, second from Vice Mayor. City Clerk, please begin the roll call.
Commissioner Hay?
Aye.
Commissioner Turkin?
Yes.
Commissioner Cruz?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Kelly?
Yes.
Mayor Penserga?
Yes.
In a roll call vote, the motion passed unanimously.
Thank you so much. We're now moving on to 10A, proposed ordinance number 24-022. Go ahead, City Clerk.
Proposed ordinance number 24-022, first reading, ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Boynton Beach, Florida, amending the Boynton Beach Administrative Amendments to the 8th edition, 2023 of the Florida Building Code.
Okay, Mr. Kunzman, you're back.
All right.
You shouldn't have sat down.
Thought we were going to get the city manager's report. Okay. All right. So we are going to make some minor changes with this. It was brought to my attention that there was in this recertification briefly, I'll go over the recertification program. The purpose of that was to maintain the structural integrity of the buildings throughout its service life and to ensure that buildings' structural and electrical service systems do not pose a threat to public health, safety, or welfare. The buildings that are affected by this are 3 stories and higher condominiums and cooperatives. The city of Boynton Beach is a little more restrictive than the state in that we've added threshold buildings, and we've also added the recertification of the electrical systems for these buildings, okay? Miami-Dade, Broward, Boca, and Highland Beach are the only other cities that I know of that include threshold buildings and the electrical recertification of these buildings. So Miami's been doing it for the longest, and I've used Miami as a blueprint to create our program. So the overview of the program, I should be hitting this thing. All right, the overview of the program, the milestone inspections must be performed by a qualified architect or engineer for 25-year-old buildings or older and every 10 years after. We're a little more restrictive in that respect as well because the state was 10 mile, or actually 1 mile for the 25 years and then 30 years for 1 mile west of that. City of Boynton Beach is not that wide, 1.5 miles. So instead of trying to find out one road or landmark to separate that, we just made the entire city 25 years. Building owners will be notified 1 year before the deadline of the by certified mail. We also hand deliver a notice for all the building owners. Phase 1 inspection, the architect or engineer will perform a visual inspection of the building and provide a quantitative assessment of the structural and electrical conditions of the building. If the phase 1 is good, then they will provide us a phase 1 letter, and we will issue a recertification certificate for that building. If a phase 2 is required, then the inspection may involve some destructive or non-destructive testing at the inspector's discretion, and a report should be resubmitted to us within 180 days of the phase 1 report. And then shortly after that, a repair and finishing date is required. All right. And like I said, after the phase 1 is done, then the certificate will be issued. Okay. The reasons for this update: we're striking this specializing in structural design and specializing in electrical design. It was brought to my attention that the specializing in electrical and specializing in structural design is a special certification. And those engineers, electrical and structural engineers, are harder to find, and they're a lot more expensive. So I thought it would be prudent to strike that so an architect or a structural engineer would be able to provide us those inspections. And this will help not only the timeline, but it'll be cheaper for the residents across the board. And some statistics. The city of Boynton Beach has notified 109 property owners. We've had 75 inspection reports submitted, 53 are phase 1, and 22 are phase 2, which means that there is some concrete restoration that's required or some electrical work that needs to be finished. And we have also issued 29 recertification certificates.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Kunzman?
Is there a timeline on compliance with the 8th edition? And are there any transitional provision for ongoing projects?
You mean when they're permitting the concrete restoration, or the timeline for submitting the reports?
Compliance?
For the reports? Okay, so they are given, when we issue the notification for recertification, they have 180 days to provide us that phase 1 or the phase 2 report. And then if a phase 2 is required, they're given another 180 days to provide the phase 2 report after the phase 1 has been provided to us. Okay, and then at that time, they're going to provide us a repair schedule. And then, there are options of getting extensions. We could provide extensions when it's required. But we're not going to provide, the extensions there is a fee for those to deter the unlimited number of extensions that somebody wants. If somebody does not provide us those reports, then we will give them a warning, and then we will take them to the special magistrate to provide the reports.
Are there any ADA requirements in this particular edition that's been modified or asked for?
The only thing that is required is the recertification of the building, the structure, or the electrical system. The accessibility to the building is not included. It should already be in place, and if it's not in place, it's really grandfathered in to when the building was constructed. Okay, I don't really want to get into the ADA, but somebody can request reasonable accommodations to the HOA or the property owner, and they'd be obligated to address those.
Thank you, John.
Good evening, Commissioner Hay, Mayor, if I may. Although our local building code is a rather large document, probably some 50, 60 pages, the actual only changes that the building department is proposing is to strike electrical engineer or structural engineer and allow architects or any professionally licensed engineer to be able to provide these reports to make it a little easier for the residents and less costly.
Thanks, Adam.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, John. I'm kind of glad that this amendment came up, because I've been, since we passed this, been, kind of anxious to get an update, because I know that in particular, surprisingly, some of the buildings on the west side of the city that you wouldn't think had issues turned out to be some of our bigger issues. And so I'm glad to see this, to kind of see this update as far as where the properties are in complying as far as our reports. I did notice that there was a number difference. You send out 109 reports, but we've only received responses back from 79. What are we doing about that, those that haven't responded?
The ones that haven't responded, our staff, we contact the property owners after 4 months, and to remind them that this needs to be done. And we've also had a couple of them request extensions. And some of the problems is financial, because for so long, they just haven't been keeping up with their buildings. And I'm glad you brought up the buildings to the west, because Village on the Green, Royal Village on the Green, those are near 95, and they're not really close to the intercoastal. And a lot of those buildings are getting phase 2. So there are repairs, structural repairs and electrical repairs that are required on those buildings.
Well, we also saw it on Congress Avenue, which is surprising as well. So, so I just wanted to point that out, that, you know, we are being proactive and a little bit more advanced in what the state requires. And I think that it has helped our residents, has also helped the property owners to just keep, you know, kind of give them a heads up as to what's coming up. But there are some issues in the city as far as building compliance, and so I'm glad that we're being proactive about this. So I'm kind of glad that we got a little update with this small amendment because it's something that that I know Adam and I have talked many times about, especially in my district, with some concerns with some buildings that you wouldn't have thought were a concern. So, so thank you.
I can provide the commission with updates every 6 months if you wish. I'll provide that to Adam Temple, and he can provide that to the commission.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor.
Absolutely. Anything else for Mr. Kunzman while he's here? With that, this is only a first reading, so there's no public comment just yet, but I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
From Vice Mayor, second from Commissioner Hay. Maylee, if you could please begin the roll call.
Commissioner Hay?
Yes.
Commissioner Turkin?
Yes.
Commissioner Cruz?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Kelly?
Yes.
Mayor Penserga?
Yes.
And roll call vote, the motion passed unanimously.
Thank you so much. We're now moving on to the next and the last item on the agenda, which is 10B. Proposed resolution number R24-263, award and approve a piggyback agreement with American Traffic Solutions, Inc., doing business as Vera Mobility, utilizing the City of Tampa contract RFP number 611122923 for services related to speed detection camera systems for school zones, subject to the final approval of the piggyback agreement from the City Attorney's Office. All right, Chief, please introduce the item.
Good evening, Chief DeGiulio. Thank you, Commissioners, Mayor, Vice Mayor. We did a quick analysis on the vendors that participated in the RFP. We wanted to make sure that the vendors that we were considering had viable contracts in the state of Florida that were competitively bid, so we can go into a piggyback agreement with them. Okay, so this first slide is just a comparison between, like I mentioned, the 5 vendors that participated in the RFP. And we did locate, for 5 of the vendors, we did locate a contract within the state of Florida that procurement as well as legal stated that the contracts were viable, legally sufficient to piggyback off of. My eyesight's going, so I'm going to have to look at that screen. Perfect. Just a quick rundown. As you see, there's 2 Vera Mobilities. One Vera Mobility is the City of Tampa contract that can be piggybacked off of. We also have next to that is there's an amended proposal from the vendor as it relates to the fees. So as you can see, is in the fee to the vendor in the Tampa contract, it's $19.20, roughly 32%. In the amended proposal from the vendor, it's after the 2 violations per camera, it's $6 a citation. I also did some projections on possible revenues to the vendor as well as the city, but please, it's a ballpark number just to kind of give you an idea. It's just a projection based off of some of the numbers we got earlier on in the speed survey. We also have Blue Line Solutions. As you see, it's the RFP over the city of Wakulla. They are at $24 a citation towards the vendor. We have Ultimate. Initially, Ultimate wasn't in the initial evaluation, but thanks to Baker County, they were able to provide us their RFP that they were able to get a competitively bidded contract for us, and also appreciate them providing all this information to us at the last minute. This is a little bit different. It's more of a hybrid type of plan. It's $34.99 per camera per month. We have 2 cameras per location. We have 18 cameras altogether. And the last one is Red Speed. We utilize the City of Plantation to do the analysis. As you see, it's $21 for the vendor. Some of the things that came up in the last meeting, I want to address it on the next slide, some of the comments and the questions and the concerns. I know Vice Mayor Kelly, you asked about the vendors who also had a red light camera program. All the vendors have red light camera programs. We also, as far as data ownership, I know that was a concern about the metadata, so we went into that as well. As you see in the last slide, on the last column, we talk about the actual data and who owns it. Most of the vendors own the data with the exception of Ultimate, and I'm not sure about the blue line, but for the most part, it goes back and forth. But for the most part, it's the details of the contracts are all very similar. I mean, each vendor has its different nuances here or there, but at the end of the day, they're all providing basically the same service. It's providing, speed zone school enforcement, and that's kind of what they're using. The technologies range from either using LiDAR, which is time and distance, or some of them use radar, which is sound waves. Next slide, actually, I control the slide. This is our analysis between all some of the things that came up. We talked about whether we have integration, because integration is big, convergence is big. Anytime we can reduce keystrokes for our employees, it's always a positive. Not logging on to multiple systems. All the vendors do have integration with the current LPRs that we use, which is Flock. Whether they're actually utilizing Flock products like Ultimate or they're using compatible products, they're all integrating or ALPRs. They all have on-demand live view cameras that we can see inside our real-time crime center. As far as the back-end software, the back-end system, we currently use Vera Mobility for our red light camera. So therefore, we already have the back office system in place already. The other companies, we do not have it. Like I mentioned at the workshop, it's a plus, of course, to have the system already in place. But of course, it's not a deal breaker. We learn multiple systems, different times, but having that convergence and that continuity already in place is certainly a benefit. Another question that came up last time was canceling out of convenience. Some of the contracts addressed it. As you see through your slide is for mobility, there is within the first year there is a charge, but after that there isn't. Blue line, it's not mentioned. Ultimate, they don't, as well as Red Speed. I'm sorry, at Red Speed they do, just in the first year. As far as uniform traffic citations, when citations or notices of violations do not get addressed through the normal paying the fine, it turns into a UTC, uniform traffic citation. All the companies, for the most part, are charging additionals for the UTC with the exception of Ultimate. And like I mentioned, the live on-view demand cameras, they all offer that. So like I said, they're all offers us the same product. So it comes down to what's the best for the city, what's in our best interest. Like I mentioned to you in the workshop, my recommendation is Vera Mobility for the simple fact is that we've had an existing relationship for 13 years with the red light camera. From a continuity operations perspective, it's there. As far as the red light camera, we have the back office software in place, so that once again becomes seamless as we move to the school zone camera. Also, when it comes down to the revenues that go towards the vendor, less of the revenue fees are going towards the vendor and it's going back into our community. And that's my recommendation. If I had to make a second recommendation as my secondary, because I know I want to give you guys some options, my second option would be Ultimate.
Thank you for the presentation, Chief. I have a couple of questions. Could you narrow down for us, and because this is and I'm so glad you did all the work and the analysis, which would you say are your top 3 business terms that are really important to the department?
My top 3?
Give me some number, however you feel comfortable. What I'm looking for is, in your assessment of this, there's lots of fine details on these tables, but what carried the most weight for you? What are the major factors?
Well, the major factors is having an established business and working relationship. I think loyalty sometimes gets underrated, but I think it's really important, especially when you're entering a contract for 5 years. We want to know who we're entering a contract with, and I think that's important. And also having that familiarity with the actual vendor is important as well. And those are the elements that I took into is we've had the existing relationship. We kind of know, we rode the ups and downs of the red light camera storm with Vera Mobility, and they stood by us. So like I said, I think loyalty sometimes gets underplayed and undervalued, but to me, it doesn't, and that carries the most weight.
In your assessment of the fees, could we scroll back one slide?
Yes.
I just want to make sure those numbers are per citation, right? Do I understand that correctly?
That's correct.
Okay. Are there any, so I did see that there were some minor fees about termination and all of that. Are there any other fees to be considered, and did you already factor that in your calculations?
Well, the uniform traffic citation does bring in additional fees because I believe, and don't quote me here, I believe there's an additional like $6.40 charge for a UTC, uniform traffic citation. But I did include it in the analysis, but it's not included in the numbers.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Let's pass it on to my colleagues so they have an opportunity as well. I don't know who wants to go first, but if you have any questions for the chief, now would be the time. Commissioner Cruz, I see your light's on. Go ahead and we'll go to Commissioner Hay next.
Thank you, Chief, for your presentation. I was looking at the terms. I have a question for the Vera contract where it's $6. How much are the first 2 violations?
They get the first 2 is $60 a piece. So in our situation, it'll be 18 cameras. So it's each day.
With regard to, so it's always $6 from the first violation.
No, the first 2 violations, Vera Mobility, the vendor, will get the full $60.
Okay.
Yes.
And then you made a good point about the data. Thank you for bringing that up as it was mentioned at the last meeting. I'm looking at the green ones, but blue line says that the vendor owns all the information. Red speed states that the city owns all documents and data, and then Vera, the vendor, owns all the data. Is it possible to allow the city to own the data for Vera per se?
I don't want to speak for the vendor, of course, but they have a few other contracts out there, like Doral as an example, and in Doral contract, the city of Doral owns the metadata, the data.
Okay.
Yeah, and the little note on the bottom is that once we terminate the contract with the vendor, we do get that data back.
If there are any, like, because I was reading here about like FOIA requests or public records requests, would they provide that to us, but then we have to pay a fee for that, like for every single request?
Generally, when it comes to a public records request, and I'm going to use the red light camera as an example, is if it's related to the event, we're supplying that. If it's related to the system itself, the vendor supplies it. And I believe in most of the contracts, they address it one way or the other. And that is on the other slide. I'm sorry I passed over it. But for the most part, most vendors will have the same type of structure. If it's related to the system, they'll handle the public records request. If it's related to an event, then it's on us to provide it.
So we would still have the data per se, we just wouldn't maintain it?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. And then I had okay, so comparing equipment, it looks like all 3 vendors that are in green, Blue Line, Red Speed, as well as Vera, they own the equipment. Let me see. For Red Speed, it looks like they would remove all equipment as long as it's in original condition within 60 days. And then for Vera, it looks like the vendor also owns the equipment, but then it looks like if the city requests removal, the vendor can charge actual cost of removal plus an additional 20% fee and return the property. So I'm seeing that this is the only vendor that's charging us a 20% fee to remove the equipment versus the other. Is that something that we could negotiate and say we don't want you to charge us a 20% fee for the equipment, or everything's just kind of
Let me defer to Andrew from procurement, or I can defer to legal when it comes to the negotiation of the terms. Andrew.
Good evening, Andrew Oswowski, your Purchasing Division Director. Basically, we are set with the terms that are in the original RFP. You know, in regards to us negotiating anything past that, I mean, we're kind of set with those terms.
Okay, thank you. Let me see, I took a few notes. And then, for dispute resolution, the two vendors that are Blue Line as well as Red Speed, they don't have any requirements. But then for Vera, there's a requirement that it requires for us to agree to mediation and to share fees and expenses for a mediator in case of any disputes. So I'm just seeing, like, I think it's good that it has that fee, but I'm also seeing a lot of additional fees as well as the ability of like them having the data versus us having the data. I would love the opportunity to see if like we could have ownership of the data. I think that would make me feel a lot more comfortable. And then the last question, I don't know who's going to be able to answer that, but how many cities are currently, do we know like how many cities are currently up and running with the speed zones cameras at all? Like, do we know?
I don't know specifically. I could tell you that the three from Vera, which is Tampa, Doral, and Davie, are not on live yet. I do know that Eustis through Ultimate is live, and there may be other ones, but from my research, those are that was the only one I know that is live. And I can be wrong. There could be other ones that are live. As this program has now come on its first full year, there are a lot of cities and municipalities and counties going live with these programs.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Cruz. Any other questions? I believe Commissioner Hay, were you next? Did you have your hand up? Or no? Whoever's next, just go.
Just thanks to Commissioner Cruz. She asked a lot of the questions that I was going to ask, but I do have, and you may have already touched base on this. If one of the cameras are down, is there any kind of gentleman handshake agreement as to when those cameras may get back in operation from a time perspective? And again, that's the vendor's responsibility because it pertains to the equipment, correct?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch the first part of your question.
If there's a camera that's not functioning, it's not working, it's down,
Right.
is there some type of, like a guarantee that it will be back up in a prescribed time period? Are we just at their disposal, or what's the track record here?
So the vendor's responsible for any type of maintenance or any type of repairs it's their equipment. It would be in everybody's best interest that they expedite the cameras. While the contracts don't specifically say it needs to be done within 24 hours, 48 hours, at least the terms that I've read, just from my past experience with the red light camera, obviously the sooner the better. There's an invested interest on both parties to
I'm
get
sorry,
that.
whoever that is that's beeping, can you please take it out in the lobby? I'm not sure where it's even coming from. All right, Chief, please continue.
Oh, that was it.
Yeah, thanks, Chief.
You got it.
Anything else for the chief? Or Andrew? Commissioner Turkin?
Thank you, Mayor. Chief, for the amended proposal for those it's a 5-year contract, is that correct?
That's correct.
And for those 5 years, is it the $6 fee to the vendor, is that for every single year?
That's correct.
Okay, so there's no change to the last year or the 4th year, correct?
That's correct.
And what's the option to renew?
The option to renew.
Annually?
Right here, it's 2 consecutive 1-year extensions.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I made a lot of my comments clear at the agenda workshop, so that's all I got. Just wanted to tighten up that contract and make sure that, we're not, doing $6 to the vendor and then that changes. Yeah, I think that's all I got. Thanks.
All right, sounds good. If there's nothing else, I'll turn to public comment on this item. If there's no one else, there's no public comment on this item? All right, I'm sorry, there's no public comment on this item?
First reading.
I'm sorry.
It's not a.
Ma'am,
It's
I was just,
normally a consent item.
I was just informed by our legal counsel that there is no public comment
This
on this
isn't
item.
an ordinance or a public hearing.
Okay,
so
can I
there's-
just say that the
Ma'am.
online thing is not working because when you said public comments, all my neighbors that could not attend said they tried to comment and they could not.
Let's have IT take a look at that. Thank you for letting us know. All right, we're going to proceed. I didn't realize that. Okay, may I have a motion on the floor?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, we have a motion from Vice Mayor Kelly and a second from Commissioner Hay. All those in favor of approving item 10B, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone oppose? Motion passes unanimously. All right. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, Chief, and Andrew, thank you. With that, if there's anything else from my colleagues, may I have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
Your second? All right. Have a
Good
good
night,
night, everybody.
everyone.
Thank you so much. And IT, please do take a look at the online.